Welcome to a special deep dive. Today, we're aiming to cut through the noise of August 2024's current affairs. Finding those vital nuggets of knowledge, the surprising facts, and those aha moments
Yeah.
to get you well-informed fast.
That's absolutely right. I mean, there's just so much information out there, isn't there? It's a real challenge to figure out what truly matters.
Yeah.
And maybe more importantly, how things that seem separate are actually connected.
Right.
So this deep dive, we hope, will be your shortcut, helping you connect the dots across, well, everything from policy, environment, economy, and science.
Okay, let's plunge right in then. A really critical aspect of India's legal system has been in the news. The Supreme Court recently voiced some pretty strong criticism about bail denials.
Yes, I saw.
They even used the term prisonization, basically the unjust, prolonged detention of people who are, well, legally presumed innocent. So for our listeners, what is bail, fundamentally? And what are the specific issues causing this kind of judicial concern?
Right. Well, bail itself is essentially the judicial release of an accused person. It's conditional, of course, on them appearing in court later.
Okay.
But the implementation is where the problems crop up. There are several core concerns the court highlighted.
Oh, yes.
Well, first, you've got arbitrary and, frankly, excessive bail bonds being set.
Right.
Which can just trap people in jail simply because they can't afford to pay. It's not about guilt or flight risk then. It's just money.
So access to justice becomes about access to funds.
Precisely. Second, there are these really prolonged delays in just hearing bail applications, sometimes even when there isn't much evidence presented initially.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a notable case back in 2019, you might recall, involving P. Chidambaram that highlighted this exact issue.
Okay, got it.
Third, the system relies too heavily on money bonds, which, as you can imagine, disproportionately hurts marginalized communities.
Makes sense.
Fourth, there's a real lack of transparency and accountability. Reasons for granting or denying bail, often not properly recorded or explained. The Dataram Singh case in 2018 touched on this.
So it's hard to see the reason.
Very hard. And finally, maybe most crucially, inconsistent application of the rules. Meaning different outcomes for people in very similar situations, which, directly goes against Article 14 of the Constitution, the equality principle. The Satinder Kumar and Till case in 2022 really drove this home. So the big picture here is that the system meant to uphold liberty is kind of inadvertently creating this cycle of prisonization, as the court put it.
That's quite sobering, thinking about the impact on individuals, especially vulnerable ones. So, okay, if these are the problems, what's the way forward? Are there actual recommendations to fix this?
There are. And for someone caught in the system now, it means potential for long, unjust detention, especially without money.
Right.
But yes, a path forward has been discussed. The Malimath Committee, way back in 2003 actually, proposed a pretty comprehensive overhaul.
Okay, what did they suggest?
Several things. Introducing alternative bail bonds, like surety bonds, not just cash. Using more community-based supervision, so monitoring people without locking them up.
Interesting.
Also, categorizing offenses differently, based on severity, sure, but also on the actual likelihood of the person absconding. More nuance.
Right, not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. And they also proposed increasing the time allowed for filing a charge sheet from 90 days to 180.
Longer. That sounds counterintuitive.
It does, but the idea is, if the charge sheet isn't filed by then, the accused must be released on bail. It aims to prevent indefinite detention while allowing proper time for complex investigations.
I see the logic now.
Yeah. Ultimately, a fair, efficient bail system, it's fundamental for a just society, making justice swift, yes, but also equitable. It could be truly transformative.
Okay, let's shift gears now from legal battles for liberty to a different kind of threat invasive species in our ecosystems.
Yep.
There's this fascinating, maybe concerning bit of news. Tamil Nadu's Water Resources Department is demanding 160 crore from Kamarjar Port.
Right.
For apparently inefficient ballast water practices. So what exactly is ballast water, and why is this seemingly local issue actually a pretty big deal?
It is a big deal. Ballast water is basically fresh or salt water that ships take into tanks for stability and maneuverability, especially when they're not full of cargo. You need the weight.
Okay.
The problem is this water isn't just water. It carries, well, a whole soup of biological stuff, bacteria, microbes, tiny invertebrates, sometimes even fish eggs or larvae. And when a ship sails, say, from Asia to Europe, and then discharges that water.
It's releasing those organisms into a new environment.
Exactly. Thousands of miles from home. That's where the trouble starts.
Okay, so beyond just the fine for the port, what are the actual dangers here? Can you give us a concrete example? Like, what does an invasive species do?
Oh, the dangers are pretty significant. The biggest one is invasive species introduction. These newcomers can just outcompete native species, totally disrupting the local ecosystem balance.
Mm-hmm.
A really clear example in India is the Sharu mussel.
Okay.
Believed to have arrived via ballast water, it's caused huge ecological and economic damage in places like Pulicat Lake and Ashtamudi Lake by basically taking over, pushing out native mussels, which hits local fisheries hard.
Wow. Okay. What else?
While second, the water itself can be polluted. Think oil residues, heavy metals, chemicals. Discharging that can cause direct pollution, sometimes even triggering harmful algal blooms.
Right, the red tides and things like that.
Exactly. Third, you can get pathogens spreading diseases, risks to human health, wildlife, other marine life. And finally, there's the straight economic hit to industries like fisheries, aquaculture, tourism, even degrading water quality for local supply. It's interconnected.
Okay, this sounds serious and widespread. So what's being done globally? Surely there's some international effort.
There is, thankfully. The main tool is the Ballast Water Management Convention, or BWM Convention. It was adopted by the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, and it's been in force since 2017.
And what does it do?
It basically mandates that ships manage their ballast water. They have to treat it or exchange it mid-ocean to remove or kill off organisms before they discharge it near ports.
So there are standards.
Yes. And some countries, like Australia and New Zealand, they're really stringent about enforcing it. Rigorous checks, inspections. They have a lot to protect in their waters.
That makes sense. A robust global framework then. But here's the surprising part, I gather. What about India? Are we part of this BWM convention?
And that is the critical piece. India is currently not a signatory to the Ballast Water Management Convention.
Really? So what does that mean practically?
It means ballast water brought in from other countries isn't subject to those same international checks or regulations when it's discharged in Indian waters or ports.
That seems like a significant gap.
It is. To really tackle this threat, environmental and economic, India really should consider signing the BWM Convention. And just as importantly, develop and enforce our own strong domestic laws for regulating ballast water at our ports. It's crucial for protecting our marine biodiversity.
Okay, moving from the seas to the digital world. Let's dive into tech now. A U.S. district court recently made a pretty huge ruling.
Yes, the Google case.
Exactly. Finding that Google holds an illegal monopoly over internet search, effectively blocking competitors. What were the core arguments and what did the court actually find?
Yeah, this is a massive case for digital markets. The core allegation was that Google used exclusive deals to suppress competitors by making sure it was the default search engine on, smartphones, browsers, everything, locking others out.
Okay.
The court found that Google's massive dominant, 89% of general search, nearly 95% on mobile.
Wow.
That dominance was directly tied to its integration, its Chrome browser, its huge ad network, all its other services working together to maintain the monopoly.
So it wasn't just about having the best algorithm, necessarily?
The court argued it went beyond that. The judge ruled specifically that Google violated Section 2 of the Sherman Act.
Which is?
That's the main U.S. antitrust law against monopolization. It's about preventing companies from illegally crushing competition.
And Google's response?
They plan to appeal, naturally. They argue the ruling will actually hurt consumers by limiting choice and slowing innovation.
Okay, so what's really fascinating is, how could this actually change things for us? For everyday users searching online, what are the potential ripple effects?
It could bring some really significant shifts, potentially. First, you might see restrictions on those exclusive default engine contracts.
Right.
That could really shake up Google's hold on where you even start your search.
So other search engines might actually get a look in.
Exactly. Which leads to the second point. Potentially more competition, not just more search engines, but maybe different kinds, more diverse options, maybe more AI-powered search tailored to specific needs. It could spur innovation that's been perhaps held back.
Interesting. What else?
Third, changes in digital advertising. If Google's ad dynamics shift, it might change the ads you see, the type, the relevance, could even lead to new business models online. And finally, for you, the consumer, it could mean more genuine choice, More awareness, perhaps, about privacy policies, more informed decisions about which search tools you use.
So it's less about the search results themselves, maybe, and more about the structure of how we find information.
Precisely. It's about potentially reshaping the architecture of online discovery, maybe decentralizing power a bit, offering real choice in a way we haven't seen for years.
Okay, from the digital world, let's pivot one last time to a really critical area. Healthcare.
Right.
The Union Health Ministry has released the first ever Standard Operating Procedures, SOPs, for transporting human organs.
Yes, very important.
It always feels like such a race against time when an organ becomes available. What have been the big logistical hurdles, and how do these new SOPs aim to fix them?
You're absolutely right. It is a race against time. Every single minute counts. And historically, the logistics have been a huge challenge, sometimes tragically leading to viable organs being wasted. These new SOPs tackle that head on. They aim to streamline the whole process.
How specifically?
Okay, so for air transport, they mandate priority takeoff and landing, priority seating front row for the medical team carrying the organ, even priority reservation. Imagine a plane being held for an organ.
Wow, that's serious commitment.
It has to be. For metros, priority transit for trains carrying organs.
Okay.
And crucially, on the roads, the creation of these green corridors, obstruction-free routes, set up quickly upon request.
Right, I've heard about those.
It's all triggered by a one-trigger system. A single request from the allocation authority sets everything in motion. There are even specifics like keeping the organ box upright, labeled clearly "handle with care."
So shaving off minutes at every step.
Exactly. Minutes that literally mean the difference between life and death for someone waiting.
That's incredibly impactful. So zooming out slightly, what's the bigger picture for organ transplantation in India? Are things improving overall, despite the challenges?
Well, India actually ranks third globally in the total number of transplants performed, which is quite something.
Really?
Third, yes. But, and it's a big but, the demand still massively outstrips the supply. Kidneys are the most common, then liver, heart, lungs.
Right.
There has been a major policy shift, though, the government's one nation, one policy.
What does that involve?
Key things. The domicile requirement is gone. Patients can register for a transplant in any state now, which widens access hugely.
That's a big change.
Huge. Also, the upper age limit of 65 for deceased donors has been abolished. And there are no fees for just registering on the waiting list.
Okay, so definite progress on the policy front.
Definitely. But challenges remain, absolutely. A major shortage of donors is still the biggest hurdle. Plus, issues with infrastructure, not enough trained staff, legal and ethical concerns around legal trade, the lack of a truly unified national registry, and yes, those logistical issues these SOPs are now trying to solve.
Got it.
So these SOPs, by tackling those real-time transport problems, are a vital piece of the puzzle, directly improving outcomes, impacting lives.
Wow, what a journey through some incredibly diverse topics today.
It really has been.
From the complexities of legal reform in India's bail system, the hidden environmental threats of ballast water, to those market-shaping decisions around tech giants like Google, and finally, these life-saving advancements in organ transplantation logistics.
Yeah.
And there you have it, 4 really fascinating threads pulled from our August 2024 deep dive. It just shows how interconnected everything is.
It really does. It underscores how understanding these individual pieces, separately they're interesting, but when you connect them, you get a much richer, more nuanced view of the world.
Absolutely. It paints that bigger picture.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up, here's a final thought for you, our listeners, to ponder. In a world that's constantly being reshaped by policy, by technology, by global events, how do you see these seemingly disparate developments, from bail reform to new health guidelines, how do you see them shaping the fabric of our interconnected future?